So we're decided rather than a Dharma talk, we'd have a conversation. It could be a bit more generative and inviting me putting in my thoughts and bouncing them off of Yousef, and Yousef taking those in and bouncing them back, so that um, I'm not trying to make a point, but rather to express what's alive in me at the moment and allow that to generate something that I have no idea what's going to generate. Um, and hopefully it will be alive and generate some thoughts in you that you can then keep moving inside you along with others. Um, it also helps me cultivate a vision of the future that I'm not necessarily going to inhabit, so that I can more skillfully contribute to some kind of vision, um, and help that manifest. And this this particular conversation was prompted by my feeling that I'm feeling burdened by the amount of awareness that has manifested in my lifetime. I can remember the moment when I learned the word environment, and I think I was an adult. Maybe it was in the early 60s, that I had never thought about the environment before. Now, I can be a little slow learner or a very slow learner, but the idea of environment was soon in my early 60s Berkeley years, joined by the notion of free speech being something that could be clamped down in the university, joined by some awareness of war and Vietnam and civil rights movements, and on to the anti-nuclear movement, and all the ways in which I was supposed to use less water, recycle, drive less. There were gas shortages. There came the women's liberation movement, and it goes on and on and on of more and more nuanced arenas of awareness, and how a person who wants to be good is supposed to act. And those awarenesses, some of them were really hard to wrap my mind around. And I'm feeling now like I'm almost immobilized by all the things I have to think about before I open my mouth. Whoops, where'd you go?
There we are.
That, even to bow in, I have to say, dear Thai, dear respected Thai, dear sister Chung Kong, dear respected this and that. And I don't always feel it, or I feel like it's perfunctory, or I want to feel it. Anyway, I think that I am so bound up at times in doing it right that I lose my own authenticity. And I want to explore how to realize that we're all caught in this, or a lot of us are caught, because the sensitivity is making us, in certain cases, more fragile rather
Mm.
than more resilient. And that I think it's important to feel all those things and how important they are, but not to be hogtied by them so that we can't be really making the world different. So I'm wondering what you think. You have a vastly different experience in the world.
So what I'm hearing you say is that over the course of your life, there have been these kind of consistent moments where you've come into contact with greater awareness, whether that be about, war and imperialism or the environment. And what you're saying is that as time has moved forward and technology has progressed and we have social media linking us up to one another and the news and all of it, that you're getting the sense that you're kind of like inundated with responsibility for knowing the state of the world, essentially, or kind of how to navigate the increasingly difficult political or um, informational life that we're living now.
Well, and my own internal biases and buy-ins,
Right.
I mean, there are plenty of them, and they're being revealed to me all the time. And I don't want to get caught in a shame and, uh, you know, get caught up in myself. But I also don't want to cause harm. And I feel like all
Hmm.
this sensitivity is confusing discomfort with harm.
Uh-huh. So there's like a very wholesome component to the sensitivity. It's basically saying I'm trying to learn more about people outside of my norm, the world outside of my sphere, so that I can support or at least minimize my harm. There's that wholesome side, but then there's almost a fear component where like we or you're saying you worry that I will kind of like accidentally do some kind of harm, and that stress of making those kinds of mistakes or that sensitivity kind of winds you up, it sounds like.
Well, I think there's a collective element to it. I
Right.
think you got it right on my end, but I'm also concerned that other people are so sensitized to that stuff that when I do it, they can't handle it. And
Hmm.
how can we be more equanimous about when one of these unskillfulnesses happen, that we can still stay in connection?
Right. Because there have been times in my own life or the life of my friends that I've been close to where these moments of unskillfulness where the wrong thing is said or the wrong action is taken cause like such catastrophic consequences for that person or their ability to like stay in connection with other people that is really painful and it kind of it misses that wholesome component of our sensitivity, the component that asks us to like be compassionate or sensitive to you know, the inevitability that humans make mistakes.
Right.
Um,
Lots of them.
and I guess I'm curious, Joanne, like what, where does your instinct take you when you're thinking about um, how to open up your perspective or view or kind of work to cultivate that wholesome component while coping with the fear or challenge of it?
Well, I guess it goes in two directions for me. One is why we got together today, you know, is that if I am spending all my time doing heavy work, doing intense, do good stuff, and I'm not balanced with some good doses of rest and play, then I'm going to tend to be more fragile. And the same for everybody else who's doing all their good work, is they're going to be more fragile and less resilient. So that was one thing about let's have the audacity to play, because I think that would help us all. I also think that playing with a wide variety of people creates relationships that then become more resilient for making mistakes.
Mm,
And then there's the piece of there's some work involved in learning how to not freak out when you or another person is unskillful. Is how do we relax into that unskillfulness on either our own part or on another's part? And that's work. That's what our practice is about. It's about taking those moments and looking at them piece by piece, just the way we did the joys,
mm.
and seeing if we can be with them in a way that is both alert and relaxed.
And how do you think play kind of helps us cultivate those practice skills that you're talking about?
How do you think?
Well, when you were talking about like mending or working through unskillful things, I was thinking about, a kindergarten playground and how one day a kid might shove another kid or do something a little untowards, and then the next day they might be friends again. And there's something about the lightness of the playground that makes that fluidity in relationship possible. Um, but I think for me, the heart of it is that play play invite you have to connect in order to play, whether that be with your environment, your own imagination, your own artistic ability, or another person and their world. Play asks you to connect to the world around you. And there's something very vulnerable about that. Again, I think about the playground scene and just being a child and going up to somebody that you may not even know very well and saying, "Do you want to play with me?" And that even just now, that makes me feel very tender to think about that and even make that gesture. Um, and so I think play has a way of softening me and other people. And yeah, that's kind of where this thought ends, but that's the first thing that comes to mind.
So, what comes to my mind from that is that if you and I have played together, or if we have connected over some joyful thing, which is what I call play, conversation can be play, then in the moment that you do something that pushes my buttons, I can remember that.
Mm,
I can remember that we have a relationship that's more than this moment. Or I can remember a time when something difficult happened and I hung in there and it was okay, even if it wasn't with the person that I'm having the difficulty with in the moment.
mm,
That don't worry, we can hang in there if we stay connected. So, like, when you ask me the question, like, I didn't have a clue as to what I was going to say. And I could feel the tension come up. And then I thought, oh, I don't have to keep it together. I can just ask you what you think. And then, boom, I was back in connection. Because in that moment, it was like, oh my God, I don't have anything to say. And there's all these people, 75 of them watching us. So, thank you for that. And that I have such a good time having these kinds of conversations with you. It's really generative. And I want to see what, oh, yeah. I,
Joanne, I'm sorry,
yeah,
can I interrupt? I'm
yeah.
remembering last summer we had flown together to France to go to Plum Village, and the trip was pretty arduous for both of us. But I remember the day we settled, or maybe we were just up there for a day in Upper Hamlet and playing ping pong together. Do you remember that?
I think so. I
I
think
just rem
so. I was playing and you were maybe a little surprised that I could play.
Yeah. And it was really fun. And while we were playing, you remembered a story about Tai playing ping
Oh,
pong with
yeah.
people,
Right.
and that you were the next in line to play with Tai before he got tired and decided to stop playing ping pong. And just talking about playing with you and all of it brings back that moment for me, and that moment brought back a moment with Tai for you. And there's something, I don't know, I feel excited thinking about like how play not only connects us to each other, but to our ancestors and our spiritual lineage and
Mm,
so much more. It's very deep.
that's sweet. And I like the idea of the uh, um, memory links
Yeah.
and that they can go forward. Um, and that what you're saying right now makes me think of, you know, I was standing there in line waiting, waiting, waiting. And so when it didn't happen, it was a time of letting go. And that the practice of letting go is a piece of this, I think, that we need to learn how to like be able to let go of that we made a mistake, that the other person made a mistake, not to let go of the content or your idea that it was a mistake, but to let go of whatever the disconnecting piece of making a mistake is. And that reminded me of there's so many conversations where someone wants to make another person have a different point of view rather than put their notion into the conversation and see what it brings. And it's like making a soup where I put in a tomato and I expect that six other people are going to put in something and it's going to end up tasting like tomato soup. Rather than I put in my tomato and then I wait and see what the end product is. And that can be a delight. Whereas if I hang on to my tomato soup, I'm just going to be disappointed. And every time somebody puts in something other ingredient, I'm not going to like it. I'm not going to be open to whatever flavor they're adding.
And on the small scale, that might create tension at dinner because you're not getting tomato soup when that's what you wanted. But I think it that tendency and for us as humans gets bigger and bigger until you have the problem that we're facing as a culture in the United States right now of like extreme polarization, where everybody is convinced that there's this X, Y, or Z right way forward, and anything less is not acceptable. And then it becomes this really intense kind of pressure cooker for people. And what you're saying is that learning how to let go or relax and be curious and open about what kind of soup you get at the end helps to take the lid off the pot, the pressure out.
Yes, I think that uh, this is the only way we're going to have right view is, or we're going to approximate right view, is by seeing more and more and more perspectives. And then each time we have a bigger perspective, the picture gets more full. And there are also times when we just don't have the capacity, and we have to know that. When, if we want a can of soup, Campbell's soup, we go and we get that. We don't invite other people to put something in the pot. That if we need comfort, we go off and do our comfort. And we know what our capacity is. So when we enter a conversation, we're not jumping into something that's bigger than we can handle. And maybe we need to just go out and play for a while. Yeah.
I was just thinking about the play element again. I was thinking about the difference between making up a story with your friends on the and like kind of that exercise or fun game of making a story together versus a book,
Yeah.
and how in the space of play where there's imagination and visualization and sensory input and all of that, like somehow the story comes alive and there's space for so much more information and perspective and back and forth. But in the format of a book, it's really easy to get overwhelmed with all of the text and the words and the who's right and who's wrong part of things. And I I find that fascinating also even from just like a quick neurobiological perspective that like so much of our brain's processing power and our nervous system's processing power happens without words. It's
Mm.
a sensory, it's a feeling machine. It's an imagining being. It's a kind of creative part of us that helps us create process.
Ah, so the play is really a workout for our imagination often. And that we are creating a capacity in that play that we can then envision something different than our fixed views.
Hmm.
And then we can envision a future that could be different, and rather than just a doom and gloom, which is quite pervasive. Um, I'm realizing I have no idea how much time has passed. Let's do a little time check. Um,
We've been talking for about 25 minutes.
okay, I think, do you feel like we've maybe talked enough and could have a little, yes or no?
I
You
think
have some more to add?
just to invite you to because I think it leads well into the exercise that you I know you want to do next to just talk a little bit more about openness of view,
Mm,
um,
yeah.
and the ability to imagine a different way forward.
Well, actually, I was going to go on a slightly different slant, which is when to know that you can't do that.
Hmm.
In terms of, there was a, there's something came to my awareness that the, the, the strong attention on letting go of the monastic path in order to keep harmony can sometimes rub up against your own sense of ethical rightness. Like, when in a conversation do you keep pushing your view? And when do you know to let go? And that I asked Sister Annabelle in a Q&A, how do you know when to do that? And her answer led me to realize you have to read the room. If the conditions are not sufficient, let go of your notion. If you think that it's going to fall, that this, that just it isn't ripe enough to be heard, then stop. But if there is a ripeness, you can put forth your notion. And that's hard to know. I mean, you're in a relationship for 50 years and you've never been successful in being heard, and you're going to approach it the same old way you always have, chances are you may as well save your breath. And if you do let go, maybe there can be a relaxation into some of your notions. I don't know if that's, I don't see anything lighting up on your face. Where do you
I'm
think I should take this?
No, I think that was it kind of takes me back to the soup, right? Like if you put the tomato in too early, it will go mushy and nobody will want to eat the soup at the end. So even though you can have six chefs cooking at the pot, there's a time for zucchini, a time for tomato, and a time for the garlic and onions.
Yeah, when I take a soup, I throw it all in at once, and that's so much my style, you know? And I know you are a gourmet cook, and you have it down to the second when the garlic goes in and just how it's chopped, etc. So I think that's a perfect place to end. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Super good for me, anyway.